Professional snipers with tranquilizer darts in case I drift too far off message. Okay. I first want to honestly, sincerely thank you for welcoming me back to this show.
When a name you've welcomed into your kitchen every single morning for over 20 years suddenly vanishes, your mind goes straight to the worst. You start picturing some secret health emergency, a quietly devastating personal loss, or a career falling apart behind closed doors. But when you actually look at where Kelly Ripa is right now, there's no tragic ending unfolding here. What's really going on is a lot more human, a story about running out of steam, hitting physical limits, and finally facing a long overdue reckoning with herself. Did something terrible happen? Where is Kelly Ripa? Viewers tuned in to see her empty chair sat right next to her husband and permanent co-host, Mark Consuelos. But instead of Kelly, there was a rotating lineup of guest hosts filling in, while Mark broke the news that sounded almost absurd for a woman who has made her entire living by talking for 25 years straight. Kelly was under strict, non-negotiable doctor's orders not to speak a single word. The heartbreak? She had just undergone a deeply painful, highly invasive gum graft surgery. This wasn't some sudden emergency that came out of nowhere. Her dentist had actually warned her 5 full years prior that she desperately needed the procedure to repair severe bone and tissue recession. For half a decade, Kelly did what she always does. She laughed off the medical advice, brushed aside the pain, and joked with her doctor that she probably wouldn't even still be on TV by the time her mouth gave out on her. But time finally caught up, and her body ended up forcing her to sit down and pay the bill. The procedure required taking tissue from the roof of her mouth to stitch over her receding gums, leaving her completely unable to talk, banned from using straws, restricted to liquid foods, and facing a recovery so miserable that even her legendary pain tolerance. This is a woman who routinely skips local anesthesia during basic dental work, was totally shattered. Putting her career on pause for 3 weeks just to let a surgical wound heal was a moment of complete surrender for someone who has built her entire life around never stopping. This temporary silence was a rare crack in the armor of one of the most intense work ethics in modern media history. For a quarter of a century, Kelly built her entire reputation on absolute, uncompromising reliability. She was the woman who never called in sick, who showed up through blinding migraines, intense personal grief, high-stakes contract disputes, and exhausting production schedules without missing a single broadcast. In her memoir, she admitted to a lifelong habit of completely ignoring her own physical and mental needs just to keep the production running smoothly. She spent years managing terrifying behind-the-scenes panic attacks while keeping a bright, effortless smile on her face the second the red light turned on. When someone who has been that constant, unwavering fixture in your life suddenly drops off the radar to deal with a quiet health crisis, the reaction is almost never rational. People naturally mistake a woman taking long overdue medical leave to heal for a woman whose life is crumbling. But as her mouth heals and her return to the morning desk approaches, it becomes obvious that this medical leave isn't a tragic finale at all. Instead, it is the very first visible sign of a woman who is finally learning how to slow down, set physical boundaries, and give herself permission to rest after decades of pushing past her limits. Her health scare is only one piece of the puzzle, because at 55, Kelly isn't just dealing with a body that is demanding a break. She is also sitting right in the middle of a massive, quiet restructuring of her personal life behind the scenes. The physical silence in her studio mirror is matched by a brand new, unfamiliar quiet inside her own home, as the hectic family life that defined her last 25 years officially transforms into something totally new. So, if she isn't facing a tragic downfall, why does her life feel like it's in the middle of a massive pivot? The empty nest and the $27 million pivot. Let's step away from the television studio first and look at the quiet shifts happening inside her home. For over a decade, her entire existence revolved around a sprawling, 5-story Upper East Side townhouse in Manhattan. She and Mark Consuelos bought the 8,000-square-foot property for an eye-watering $27 million back in 2013, transforming it into an Art Deco masterwork filled with custom French antiques, a rooftop garden, and enough space to raise 3 loud, energetic kids. For years, That townhouse was the chaotic center of the Ripa Consuelo's universe, a sanctuary where squeaking sneakers, homework marathons, and family dinners provided a grounding counterweight to the intense glare of Hollywood fame. When they first moved in, Kelly openly joked that they would have to carry her out of that house feet first because she loved every single inch of it. It was designed to be their ultimate family fortress. But homes carry memories, and they also hold onto echoes. As the years quietly ticked by, the noise inside those 5 floors began to fade away. One by one, their 3 children grew up, packed their bags, and stepped out into the world on their own terms. Michael pursued film and writing. Lola relocated across the Atlantic to build a music career in London, and Joaquin headed off to college. Suddenly, 2 people who spent 25 years managing a bustling, high-traffic household found themselves standing in an empty 8,000-square-foot museum. Walking through 5 stories of empty bedrooms and silent hallways has a way of forcing a couple to confront the passage of time. It turns out that an empty nest isn't just an emotional milestone. It is a physical reality that changes how you interact with your surroundings. The sprawling kitchen that once saw early morning school rush hours now sits quiet, except for Kelly and Mark, sipping their morning coffee together before walking to the set. This realization prompted a massive pivot. Rather than holding onto a towering estate built for a party of 5, Kelly and Mark began quietly reevaluating what they actually wanted their day-to-day life to look like in this brand new era. For parents who poured their entire adult lives into building a safe haven for their kids, letting go of the family home represents a profound psychological shift. It is a physical acknowledgement that the active parenting chapter of their lives has concluded, opening up space for something completely different. They aren't running away from their past. They are streamlining for their future. Downsizing from a massive landmark property to a smaller, more intimate space is about reclaiming independence. It is the freedom to travel at a moment's notice, to spend more time at their quiet retreat in the Hamptons, and to focus entirely on their own partnership, without the endless maintenance of a mini-mansion built for a large family. Watching a woman who defined herself for decades as a devoted, hands-on mother transition into this unencumbered space is fascinating. She is no longer arranging her world around carpools, school schedules, or teenager dynamics. At 55, Kelly is rediscovering what it feels like to live in a house designed solely for 2 adults who happen to be deeply in love and working together every day. The $27 million townhouse served its purpose beautifully, serving as the backdrop for some of the happiest years of her life. Moving on isn't a tragic loss. It is an intentional, liberating step toward total personal freedom. Yet, stepping away from a massive family home is easy compared to the next phase. Watching their grown children forge their own paths under the blinding spotlight. The Consuelo's kids watching your children step out into the world is intimidating for any parent. But doing it under the harsh, unyielding spotlight of Hollywood is an entirely different beast. For Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos, raising 3 kids while navigating multi-million-dollar careers was never going to look like standard suburban parenting. Yet, despite growing up with movie star parents and camera crews practically in their living room, Michael, Lola, and Joaquin Consuelos have emerged as remarkably grounded, independent adults who are forging their own creative paths. The secret behind their quiet resilience comes down to a strict parenting philosophy Kelly and Mark established from day one. There were no free rides, no effortless handouts, and certainly no automatic passes, just because of their last name. Kelly famously mandated that once her kids turned 18 and went off to college, the financial tap turned off for luxury extras. If they wanted extra spending money, they had to work for it. That tough love framework was designed to shield them from the infamous nepotism baby trap that swallows up so many celebrity offspring. Now, as adults, all 3 are making their mark on their own terms. Michael, the eldest, graduated from New York University with a degree in film and writing. Instead of leaning strictly on his family's connections, he spent years paying his dues behind the camera as a production assistant, auditioning relentlessly, and taking on writing projects ranging from screenplays to novels. Audiences recognized a striking resemblance to his father when he played a young version of Mark's character on Riverdale. But Michael has made it clear that his true passion lies in storytelling, writing, and building a long-term legacy behind the lens. Then there is Lola, their fiercely independent middle child and only daughter. After studying music production at NYU's prestigious Clive Davis Institute, Lola made the bold decision to pack up her life and move across the Atlantic to London, carving out an identity as a singer-songwriter far away from the American tabloid machine. She began releasing her own moody, soulful tracks like Paranoia, Silver Lining, and Rolls. When her talent earned her a spot on international music watch lists, her parents didn't leverage public relations stunts. They quietly flew to London and bought tickets to sit in the audience, beaming like any other proud mom and dad. Perhaps the most emotional journey of all belongs to their youngest, Joaquin. As a child, Joaquin was diagnosed with severe dyslexia and dysgraphia, learning differences so profound that Mark once broke down in tears, fearing his son might never be able to read well enough to attend college. Through relentless remediation, grueling work ethic, and fierce support from Kelly, Joaquin proved everyone wrong. He earned his way into the University of Michigan, where he competed as a Division I wrestler and earned his degree in theater. Today, as he steps into his own acting career, he represents the ultimate victory for a family that values grit over privilege. Seeing all three children comfortably established in their adult lives gives Kelly a profound sense of accomplishment. She didn't just raise kids who survived growing up around fame. She raised self-sufficient human beings who actually like their parents. Their tight-knit bond remains the emotional core of her life, proving that the foundation she built behind closed doors was solid as a rock. The soap opera spark and 30 years of marriage to understand the sheer longevity of Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos. You have to rewind to a humid audition room in New York City back in 1995. Kelly was already an established star on the hit ABC soap opera All My Children, playing the wildly popular, punk rock-leaning character Haley Vaughn. Producers were hunting for an actor to play her new love interest, Mateo Santos, and brought in a completely unknown, 20-something actor who was literally sleeping on a friend's couch at the time. That actor was Mark Consuelos. Before he even walked through the door for his screen test, Kelly saw his headshot laying on a casting table and felt an eerie, immediate wave of certainty. She didn't just think he was attractive. She had an overwhelming gut feeling that this stranger was destined to be her entire future. When they finally met face to face, the chemistry was so instant that the show's writers barely had to invent romantic tension. They just pointed the cameras at them and let it burn. Off-screen, they tried to keep things strictly professional, but the connection was impossible to resist. Just a year into dating, they got a rare 2 days off from their soap opera filming schedule. They didn't plan a grand, star-studded Hollywood wedding, nor did they wait for a long, traditional engagement. Instead, they boarded a flight to Las Vegas, spent less than $200, and got married at a cheap chapel on May 1st, 1996. At the time, industry insiders laughed off the marriage, assuming two young soap stars eloping on a whim in Vegas would last maybe 6 months before flaming out. 3 decades, 3 children, and several multi-million-dollar television contracts later, they are still standing as one of the most unbreakable partnerships in show business. Reaching 30 years of marriage in Hollywood is rare enough, but doing it while living in the public eye and eventually sharing a morning talk show desk every single day defies all industry math. Kelly has always been brutally honest about what it actually takes to stay married for 30 years. She openly rejects the sanitized, fairy tale version of romance that Hollywood loves to market. Instead, she talks openly about the grueling, unglamorous work of pushing through the hard seasons, surviving arguments, and learning how to evolve together rather than growing apart. Working together on Live with Kelly and Mark could easily have been a recipe for disaster. Spending 24 hours a day together as romantic partners, business colleagues, and co-hosts exposes every flaw in a relationship. The morning TV throne for a quarter of a century, Kelly hasn't just been a host. She has been the undisputed anchor of one of the longest-running and most lucrative franchises on American television. But holding that morning television throne for 25 years wasn't a smooth ride or a stroke of good luck. It was a masterclass in survival, resilience, and savvy reinvention through some of the most chaotic transitions in broadcast history. It all began back in 2000, when legendary broadcaster Kathy Lee Gifford stepped down after 15 massive years alongside Regis Philbin on Live with Regis and Kathy Lee. the network launched an exhaustive, high-profile search for her replacement, testing dozens of A-list celebrities, news anchors, and comedic actresses in the co-host chair. When Kelly walked into the audition room, she was still primarily known as a soap opera star on All My Children. But the second she sat down next to Regis, the energy in the room shifted instantly. Her razor-sharp wit, effortless comedic timing, and total lack of intimidation when trading barbs with a television legend blew everyone away. In early 2001, she was officially named permanent co-host, inaugurating the Live with Regis and Kelly era. Working alongside Regis Philbin was a masterclass in unscripted, raw broadcasting. Regis was famous for keeping his hosts on their toes, relying on zero notes, pure instinct, and spontaneous storytelling. Kelly absorbed every lesson, mastering the rare art of making 5 minutes of morning chit-chat about everyday life feel like vital, top-tier entertainment. Over the next decade, their chemistry turned the show into a ratings powerhouse. But television dynasties rarely end without drama. When Regis announced his retirement in 2011, Kelly faced her first true test as the surviving figurehead of the show. She guided the program through another exhausting search, carrying the broadcast entirely on her shoulders alongside an endless rotation of guest hosts. In 2012, former NFL superstar Michael Strahan was brought in as her new co-host, ushering in a wildly successful chapter that brought fresh energy and massive ratings to the show. The duo seemed unstoppable until 2016, when corporate politics triggered one of the most explosive scandals in daytime history. Executives at Disney and ABC arranged for Strahan to leave Live to join Good Morning America, keeping Kelly completely in the dark until moments before the news leaked to the press. Blindsided and disrespected by the network after 15 years of total loyalty, Kelly took a principled stand. She walked off the set, refusing to air for several days to demand transparency and professional respect from network leadership. When she returned to the show, she delivered a calm, courageous, and memorable on-air speech about workplace respect, communication, and the value of equal partnership. That moment transformed her public image overnight. She was no longer just a cheerful morning host. She was a formidable, highly respected executive presence who proved she would never allow herself to be pushed around by network executives. Following Strahan's departure, Ryan Seacrest joined her in 2017, ushering in 6 years of smooth, highly polished, and deeply successful broadcasting that stabilized the brand and proved Kelly's unmatched star power could thrive with any partner. When Seacrest stepped down in 2023, Kelly and the network made an unprecedented move, bringing in her real-life husband, Mark Consuelos, as permanent co-host. Transitioning Live with Kelly and Mark into an authentic, husband-and-wife domestic comedy routine revitalized the franchise once again, keeping it firmly at the very top of daytime ratings. Staying on top of daytime television for 25 years requires an extraordinary mix of charisma, emotional intelligence, and business savvy. Kelly didn't just survive changing co-hosts, executive betrayals, and evolving media landscapes. She conquered them all, proving time and again that she was the undeniable heartbeat of the entire franchise. Sitting in that chair for 25 years doesn't just take charisma and sharp instincts, though. It demands an almost superhuman physical discipline that very few viewers sitting at home ever truly appreciate. The cost of perfection maintaining that level of morning television dominance for 25 years requires far more than natural charm and quick wit. It demands an unrelenting, almost monastic level of physical discipline. Beyond the daily grind of live television and the intense physical discipline it demands, Kelly quietly built an off-camera empire that ensures her ultimate legacy will extend far beyond any morning show desk. Her empire, while millions know her primarily as the cheerful voice accompanying their morning coffee, Kelly spent decades quietly expanding her reach across primetime television, film, production, and high-level corporate deal-making. Her success isn't just about surviving in daytime. It is about building an independent, highly lucrative financial machine that gives her absolute autonomy over her career. Long before she dominated daytime, Kelly proved she had the acting chops to carry primetime programming. Following her breakout decade on All My Children, she stepped into the world of network sitcoms, starring opposite Faith Ford in the hit ABC comedy Hope and Faith for 3 seasons. Her natural comic timing translated effortlessly beyond daytime television, leading to acclaimed guest appearances on shows ranging from the hit NBC drama Ed to cult favorite comedies like Broad City and a memorable, sharp turn alongside her husband on Riverdale. However, her most strategic career move came off camera when she and Mark founded their own production company, Melojo Productions. Named after the first 2 letters of each of their 3 children's names, Michael, Lola, and Joaquin, Melojo quickly grew into a major creative player in television. Rather than waiting for Hollywood studios to offer them roles, Kelly and Mark began developing and executive producing their own projects, including true crime series, documentaries, digital shows, and scripted TV movies for networks like Lifetime. Owning her own production company shifted Kelly from a hired talent who could be replaced by network executives into a powerful producer who owns the content she creates. That business savvy has paid off on a staggering scale. Today, Kelly is one of the highest-paid women in American broadcasting, commanding an annual salary of over $22 million for co-hosting live. Paired with decades of lucrative brand partnerships, speaking engagements, and production deals, her net worth is estimated at well over $120 million. Her professional achievements have been validated by industry honors, including 6 Daytime Emmy Awards, a star on the prestigious Hollywood Walk of Fame, and the GLAAD Excellence in Media Award for her advocacy. At 55, Kelly Ripa doesn't just hold a job. She sits at the peak of a self-built media enterprise that guarantees her long-term influence regardless of what happens on morning television. Which brings us right back to those dark, frantic headlines that keep popping up on your social media feeds. Truth at 55, when you step back from the hysterical headlines and take a hard look at the actual landscape of Kelly Ripa's life today. The dramatic narrative of a tragic downfall completely evaporates. The reality unfolding behind the scenes isn't a crisis. It is simply the natural, healthy evolution of a woman entering her mid-50s on her own terms. Her recent absence from daytime television turned out to be a very straightforward, albeit uncomfortable, medical necessity. After years of putting her career first and delaying a painful gum graft surgery, her body finally demanded its due. Under strict doctors' orders not to speak, use straws, or eat solid foods, Kelly took the necessary time off to let her body heal. Mark Consuelos kept fans reassured on air, confirming that she is doing great, recovering steadily, and following every single aftercare rule. Viewers will see her back in action with pre-recorded episodes starting August 10th, before she makes her triumphant live return on September 8th to launch the show's 39th season. Beyond her quick physical recovery, the larger shifts in her life reveal a family unit that is thriving rather than fracturing. She and Mark aren't selling their iconic $27 million Manhattan townhouse because of financial strain or marital friction. They are downsizing because their job as daily parents is officially complete. Their 3 grown children, Michael, Lola, and Joaquin, have fully launched into adulthood, leaving behind an empty nest that their parents are eager to reframe as a brand new chapter of freedom. With Lola making waves in the London music scene, Michael making his mark in film writing, and Joaquin pursuing his acting career after graduating from college, Kelly and Mark are enjoying the ultimate reward of hands-on parenting, raising independent kids who genuinely love coming back home. So why does society jump so quickly to the word tragedy whenever an accomplished 55-year-old woman steps back to catch her breath? The answer lies in our cultural obsession with framing aging in the public eye as a series of losses rather than a series of gains. When a female broadcaster takes medical leave or restructures her life, sensational narratives immediately paint it as a quiet tragedy or a forced exit. But Kelly Ripa's trajectory completely rejects that tired trope. At 55, she isn't losing her grip on power. She is wielding total autonomy over her time, her physical health, her multi-million-dollar business empire, and her family's future. She has built a life that allows her to take a necessary break without fear of losing her seat at the table. When she returns to her morning show chair alongside her husband this fall, it won't be a comeback from a tragic disaster.